I hope you guys are doing well. So today let us solve questions related to English literature. So this is the first question in front of you. The list 1 contains various critics and list 2 contain the works that they have written. Plato, Aristotle, P.B. Shelley and Philip Sidney. These are the critical writers that you have. So tell me the right answer. List 2 is the works. List 2 basically contains the works, rhetoric, symposium, apology for poetry and defense of poetry. These are the options. So the right answer will be D. A, that is Plato has written the work Symposium. Symposium is the work written by him. Aristotle has written the work Rhetoric. Rhetoric is the work that he is famous for. P.B. Shelley is famous for defense of poetry and Philip Sidney for apology for poetry, right? So rhetoric, as well as there is another work that Aristotle is very famous for, and this is Poetics, right? So poetics basically talks about the art of writing poetry, or you can say the structure and the form of how poetry should be and what are the effects of a good poetry. And rhetoric talks about the art of persuasion, focusing on how language is used to influence the audience. These are the two works. Apology for Poetry, on the other hand, is a work, an apology for poetry to be precise, is a work written by Philip Sidney. So it was written in 1580, but it was published after the death of Sidney in 1595, after his death. And you should also know that it was partly because of the motivation given by Stephen Gosson. So Stephen Gosson wrote a work called as The School of Abuse. The School of Abuse was a work which he dedicated to Sidney, and here he is going to satirize the, you can say, the way in which poetry was written. So Stephen Gosson was a former playwright who dedicated this work to the English stage. This work came out in 1579. It was like an attack. So reading this work, after this work was published, Sidney wrote the work An Apology for Poetry. He also is going to comment here on Plato, who thought that poetry is nothing but mimesis, or it is something that is going to make the statesman weak. So he said poetry evokes certain emotions of this kind that only makes a person weak. So he asked the poets to be banned. इन्होंने क्या कहा था? The poets should be banned. So Plato and Stephen Gosson together are discussed. Their points are together discussed in the work written by Philip Sidney, that is An Apology for Poetry. Okay, I hope this is clear and you guys understood this. Let us move forward and look at the next question that we have. Okay, Munira, Ninu Ego, Ekmifuna and Maureen. These are the characters in list 1 and list 2 is the works. So you need to tell me ये वाले characters किस work में आते हैं. Things Fall Apart, Petals of Blood, July's People, The Joys of Motherhood. The Joys of Motherhood. So I hope you guys know that The Joys of Motherhood is by Buchi Amacheta, an important writer, Buchi Amacheta. The Joys of Mother is a novel written by Buchi Amacheta that was first published when? In 1979. Okay. July's People, Petals of Blood, Things Fall Apart, they are all important. So Buchi Amacheta was a Nigerian writer who was author of plays, books, or say autobiography, children book as well. She received important prizes for her novels. For example, in 1974, she has written a novel that got very famous, Second Class Citizen. Second Class Citizen is her novel. Her other books include The Bride Price, 1976, The Slave Girl, 1977, and The Joys of Motherhood, that is written here. Okay, so these are the works that you should know. And Buchi Amacheta is characterized as the first successful black woman novelist living in Britain after 1948. Nigerian writer थी Buchi Amacheta. Okay. So what should be the right answer? The right answer should be A. A is the right answer here. We have Munira, who is a character from Petals of Blood. Then you have B, that is Ego. Nino Ego is in the Joys of Motherhood. Ekmefona is a character from Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, and Maureen is a character in July's People. So July's People, who has written July's People? July's People is written by Nadine Gordimer. Nadine Gordimer has written this. Nadine Gordimer is a South African writer. Okay, she is a South African writer, very important. She received Nobel Prize in Literature in 1991. She is recognized for her magnificent work benefiting to the humanity. She has written novels like The Conservationist. We have Berger's Daughter, July's People. She also received Booker Prize. Yeah, she also received Booker Prize when? In 1974. I hope you will remember this. These are few things that you should know. We all know Chinua Achebe and we have discussed questions about him. So I will be talking about Petals of Blood now. Petals of Blood is a novel that is written by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. It is by Ngugi wa Thiong'o and first published in 1977, set in Kenya, and it also talks about Mau Mau rebellion. So it talks about Mau Mau rebellion. There are 4 characters: Munera, Abdullah, then Vanza and Karega. So these are the characters, and in order to escape the city life, each retreats to a small pastoral village and live their life. As the novel progresses, the characters are going to deal with depression because of the Mau Mau rebellion that happened, and rapid westernization was happening in Kenya. That became the drawback of the work that we are discussing. Right? Vathiongo has also written other works, but this is a work that is asked a lot of times, though there are other works like Weep Not Child, 1964, The River Between, 1965, A Grain of Wheat, 1967, Petals of Blood, Wizard of the Crow, etc. Okay, we can move forward. Okay, next question. Find the chronological order of the publication of the novels written by Charles Dickens. Now, one information, this question was dropped. So, ये question was dropped, but I will still give you the correct answer and the chronological sequence of the novels written by Charles Dickens, because Charles Dickens is again asked in your paper in 2 manners. So they can ask 2 types of questions from Dickens. One is definitely the dates, that is in the chronological order. The second is about the characters. So please read the summary about Charles Dickens novels as well as learn the dates of the works that is written by Charles John Hoffman Dickens. And what is the date? He is writing in the Victorian period. 7th February he was born, 1812, till 9th June 1870 he is living, writing in the Victorian era. He is the greatest novelist in the Victorian era. In the 20th century, scholars still recognized him as a literary genius. He has written notable works like Pickwick Papers, Oliver Twist, Nicholas Nickleby, A Christmas Carol, David Copperfield. Let us see And all of his works, one more thing, were initially serialized in weekly and monthly magazines. They were printed as a serial manner, and later standard book formats came into picture. Though, as I told you, this question was dropped, but the right order would be CABED. Pickwick Papers, 1836 till 1835. Oliver Twist, 1837 till 1839. Dombey and Son, 1846 till 1848. Bleak House, which talks about Chancery, 1852 till 53. David Copperfield from 1849 till 1850. Okay, let us move forward and let us look at the next question. Again, a very, very important question. Arrange the following works in the chronological sequence: Raj Mohan's Wife, A Bend in the Ganges, Kanthapura, Untouchable, and Distant Drum. These writers are very profound, all very, very important. The works that are there are again very important, and you need to read the summary of these works. So this option C is the right answer. C, that means सबसे पहले we have Raj Mohan's Wife. Then we have D, Untouchable. After that, C, Kanthapura by Raja Rao. Then we have B, that is A Bend in the Ganges. And last may we have the Distant Drum. Let us read the answer. So we have Raj Mohan's Wife in 1864 by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. Untouchable, a novel by Mulk Raj Anand talking about the Gandhian era. Gandhian whirlwind के अंदर लिखा जाता है ये. In 1935, Kanthapura 1938 by Raja Rao, A Bend in the Ganges 1964 by Manohar Malgonkar, Distant Drum also by Manohar Malgonkar in 1974. So option number C turns out to be the right option. Mulk Raj Anand has written the work Untouchable that was published in 1935. The novel was established by Anand as one of the most successful works. He became one of the most successful Indian English author during that time. The novel was inspired by his aunt. Remember this? It was his aunt, so it is a real life experience that inspired him to write this letter. His aunt was basically ostracized because she shared her meal with a Muslim woman. So he is going to take the plot, and caste system and how deep it has penetrated into the lives of people living during that era is the major theme. It depicts the character Bakha. So Bakha is a character who is a young sweeper. Okay, he is a young sweeper who is an untouchable. And due to his work, why? Because he was cleaning latrines. This work was followed by another very important work that you have to learn, and that work is Kuli. वो work कौन सा है? It is Kuli. So at least these two works, and I would say all the works of Mulk Raj Anand are very important, but Untouchable you have to learn, you have to read the summary, and Kuli. So there were three very important writers. They are called as Trimurti. We have R.K. Narayan here. R.K. Narayan. Then we have Raja Rao. And along with them, we have Mulk Raj Anand. Okay, so these three were the three Murtis and the most important writers during that time. Kuli came out when? In 1936. After that, we also had novels like Two Leaves and a Bud. Two Leaves and a Bud, 1937. He is also very notable. Mulk Raj Anand is very notable when it comes to writers who were Punjabi or Hindustani, who were using Punjabi or Hindustani idioms into English. So, chutneyfication is something that we see from the very beginning done by Mulk Raj Anand. He also received Padma Bhushan, that is the third highest civilian award. He is one of the most important writer, and you will be reading his works. Untouchable 1935, 1936 Kuli, then we have Two Leaves in a Bud. We have works like The Village 1939. Then we have Across the Black Waters 1939 again. The Sword and the Sickle. Please read the summary as well as the characters should be on your fingertips. Then The Big Heart, 1945. These are very, very important. Okay. I hope this is clear. We can then move towards the next writer. But Manohar Malgonkar, we should also discuss Manohar Malgonkar. So I'll write here. Manohar Malgonkar was an Indian author. He was a civil servant and a big game hunter and army officer. Okay, Malgonkar. Manohar Malgonkar, time period 1913 till 2010. 2010, he was an army officer, civil servant, a mine owner, as well as a farmer. He has written works like The Distant Drum. He has written works like A Combat of Shadows. This work is also asked in your paper, 1962. A Bend in the Ganges, again an important work. Then The Devil's Wind, 1972. Shalimar, 1978. And Bandhikoot Run, 1982. Okay, these are the works. And also A Bend in the Ganges is important. Why? Because this work talks about the civil disobedience movement that was going in the 1930s. It also talks about the Swadeshi movement. The novel opens talking about the civil disobedience movement, the activities of the freedom fighter. That outbreak during the Second World War is also discussed here. Okay. Then it also talks about Bombay dock explosion. These are the themes that the novel cover. Lastly, it also talks about division of India, 1947. There is an epigraph in the work. In this work, there is an epigraph. And this epigraph, why is it so famous? Because it is taken from Ramayana. And the epigraph is at a bend in the Ganges, they paused to take a look at the land they were leaving. Okay, so this is the epigraph of the work. The story revolves around three male characters. We have Gyan Talwar, who is very much influenced by the Gandhian ideology of non-violence. We have Debi Dayal, and we have Shafi Usman. Right? Okay, let's go forward. I hope you'll read this work. Choose the correct chronological sequence in which the following texts were published: Madness and Civilization, The Archaeology of Knowledge, The Language of the Self, The Function of the Language and Psychoanalysis, The Birth of the Clinic, as well as Culture and Anarchy. All of these works are extremely important. Okay, let me tell you the right answer. So the right answer is B. B is the right answer. We have Culture and Anarchy, written in 1869 by Matthew Arnold in the Victorian period. Madness and Civilization is by Michel Foucault. The Language of the Self, the Function of the Language in Psychoanalysis by Lacan, 1968. The Archaeology of Knowledge, again by Foucault, 1969. The Birth of the Clinic, again by Foucault, 1973. So B becomes the right answer. Matthew Arnold's work, The Culture and Anarchy, is a very important work. Culture and Anarchy, and the full title is An Essay in Political and Social Criticism. Okay, this work, this is also a PYQ. It was published for the first time in which magazine? In Cornhill magazine. In Cornhill magazine from 1867 till 68, and then in the book form it was published when? In 1869. The preface was added when? In 1869 only. Okay, so Arnold's famous piece on the culture established his high Victorian culture. He is going to talk about culture in this book explicitly. And what exactly is culture? So he said in this work that culture is the study of perfection. Culture is the study of perfection. He further wrote that culture seeks to do away with classes to make the best that has been thought and known in the world everywhere. Okay. He has also quoted that culture is the best which has been thought and said. This comes from the preface of The Culture and Anarchy. This is a work that talks about various terms that became famous and they are attributed to Matthew Arnold. He talks about culture in this work. He gave these words like sweetness and light. He also described the three classes here. Classes like the barbarian. Then he talked about Philistine, as well as we have the word Hebraism. Okay, Hebraism. These are some words that you should study. Okay. These are the words that are associated with Matthew Arnold. Foucault again is a very important writer. Foucault was a post-structuralist. He was a French historian. Foucault has written works. He was a political activist, literary critic, a philosopher, historian, has given many ideas. I will write Foucault's works here. So he talks about postmodernism, post-structuralism, used words like panopticon, then panopticism to be precise. He talks about genealogy and biopower, biopolitics. Some of the works are that he's very famous for: Madness and Civilization, 1961, The Birth of the Clinic, 1963. Then we have works like The Order of Things. This is again by Foucault in 1966. And we have Discipline and Punish in 1975. We also have works like The History of Sexuality in 1976. So these are the works he has written: Biopower, Biopolitics, then Discourse, Genealogy, then Heterotopia, Panopticism. These are the certain terms that Foucault has coined. Now, panopticism was an idea talked by Jeremy Bentham, but Foucault made this as a very popular concept. Okay, so Foucault has talked about it. Let us move forward. Given below are two statements. The book The Theatre of Revolt was written by Robert Buston. The book, The Theatre of Revolt, is written in the context of French Revolution. So in the light of this statement, you need to tell me which is correct and which is not correct. So in the light of the above statement, statement 1 is true and the second is false. The Theatre of Revolt was written by Robert Bustin, but this work talks about the modern theatre, which is basically found in the soil of rebellion cultivated by 8 outstanding playwriters like Jean Genet, Eugene O'Neill, then we have Breath, okay, Strindberg, etc. So you can learn the name of these writers as well, these playwriters. What does the word assonance mean to you? Repetition of identical or similar consonants, repetition of identical or similar vowels, repetition of identical or similar phrases, repetition of identical or similar clauses. So assonance basically, so B is the right answer. It is a figure of speech that we'll be discussing. It is used as a figure of speech. What exactly is a figure of speech? They are like ornaments, shringar, that makes your language more beautiful. For example, I tell you, you are as beautiful as a rose. So this means the person is very pretty, right? So praising like this will make he or she even more happy, don't you think? So these are the words that are called as figure of speech, where we can see that a repetition of an identical word or similar vowels is done. That is called as assonance. Repetition created by assonance enhances the rhythm, mood, and also emphasizes the certain word that you are repeating. So B is the right answer. What needs my Shakespeare for his honored bones? The labor of an age in piled bones, or that is hollowed relics should be hid under a star pointing pyramid. These lines are written by whom? So these lines are written by, B is the right answer here, Milton. Milton has written these lines. These lines are taken from the work on Shakespeare that was composed by John Milton. The poem is basically an epitaph where Milton basically is trying to honor Shakespeare and his literary achievements. This verse is written in the form of a heroic couplet, and hence B becomes the right answer. What were the other options? We had Ben Jonson, then we have Milton, we have Browning and Wordsworth. So we have Milton, who has written a very important work on Shakespeare called as On Shakespeare. Which of the following is not written by P.B. Shelley? P.B. Shelley is writing in the Romantic period. P.B. Shelley is writing in the Romantic period. He is an English writer, to be precise, an English poet, Romantic poet. And we have options like The Mask of Anarchy, Queen Map, a philosophical poem. Then The Vision of Judgment and The Revolt of Islam. He was radical when it comes to his poetry, his political and philosophical views. Shelley did not achieve much fame during his lifetime, but after his death, he became very famous. So, what should be the right answer? C is the right answer. So, let me just mark. The Vision of Judgment is not written by P.B. Shelley. The Vision of Judgment is not written by P.B. Shelley. It is a satirical poem written in Ottawa Rima by Byron. Lord Byron has written it. It was a critical rebuttal to Robert Southey, who has written a poem, A Vision of Judgment. Now, why I included this work? This was a very, very easy work to include, but I also wanted you to focus on these 2 points. We have Byron, who has written the work The Vision of Judgment. The Vision of Judgment. Similarly, we have Robert Southey, who has written a poem, A Vision of Judgment. And A Vision of Judgment was written first, tagged Byron, and Byron then is going to write the work The Vision of Judgment. Okay. So this work, A Vision of Judgment, gives a very optimistic perspective on the death of King George III, while The Mask of Anarchy, Queen Mab, a philosophical poem, and The Revolt of Islam are written by P.B. Shelley. P.B. Shelley is one of the most important writer who is best known for works like poems like Ozymandias in 1818, then Ode to the West Wind, Ode to the West Wind in 1819, To a Skylark 1820, Adonis 1821. Then there is a philosophical essay. These are the poems. Philosophical essay, The Necessity of Atheism 1811. He also co-authored a political ballad, The Mask of Anarchy 1819. Then his verse dramas like The Cenci in 1819, Prometheus Unbound 1820, Hellas 1822. Then there is a long narrative poem, and this is Alaster, or The Spirit of Solitude in 1815. Lastly, we have the work The Triumph of Life 1822, right? Let us move forward and do one more question. Name the playwright who has composed the play A Woman Killed with Kindness. A Woman Killed with Kindness. Francis Beaumont, Beaumont and Fletcher, Thomas Kidd, or Thomas Heywood. Who has written the work Woman Killed with Kindness? So D is the right answer. It is Heywood who has written the play A Woman Killed with Kindness in early 17th century. The plot is derived from an Italian novel, Illumine, which was translated into English and published as the name The Palace of Pleasure. Hence, D is the right answer. Thomas Heywood is a very important Jacobean theatre writer. Jacobean writer hai ye. He has written a masterpiece, a domestic tragedy. It is what? It is a domestic tragedy. घर में होने वाली, बहुत ही day-to-day life वाली tragedy है, A Woman Killed with Kindness. It was first performed when in 1603. He is a prolific writer, gained a lot of success. Woman Killed with Kindness is also, it was acted in 1603, but you should know that it was published when in 1607. This is not the only work that he is very famous for. इनके और भी works बहुत famous हैं. For example, The Rape of Lucrece, 1608. This is also a tragedy. So these two are the tragedies that he has written. He has also written romances like The Four Prentices of London, and this work was published in 1615. Then he has also written The Fair Maid of the West, Part 1 and Part 2 in 1631. He has written chronicle plays. So कुछ इनके chronicle plays हैं. And what are these plays? We have The Golden Age. The Golden Age, this is a work coming in 1611. The Silver Age. Then we have The Brazen Age in 1613 and the Iron Age. The Iron Age in 1632 came out in 2 parts. Okay. Though he has also written Mask, लेकिन वो इतने famous नहीं थे. Okay. So, okay, let us do this question also. ये last question है. I recognize that its heroine is a little prig and its hero is a pompous ass, but I do not care about which novel Jane Austen said this statement is about which novel of Jane Austen this statement was made by Somerset Maugham. So Somerset Maugham actually made this statement about one of the novel written by Jane Austen. I recognize that its heroine is a little prig and its hero is a pompous ass. So Somerset Maugham said this about Pride and Prejudice, Northanger Abbey, Sense and Sensibility और Mansfield Park. So किस novel के बारे में you have Somerset Maugham who commented this? Take a minute and tell me the right answer. William Somerset Maugham, a writer born in 1874, especially you can remember that he was writing play, novel, short story. So he was an English writer born in Paris. And his first work is Lisa of Lambeth, 1897. 97. A study in the slums, an important work. It was nationally celebrated. He has also written work like Of Human Bondage, 1915, The Moon and Sixpence, 1919, The Painted Veil, 1925, Cakes and Ale, 1930, The Razor's Edge, 1944. And he has also written short story collection The Casuarina Tree, जो कि same, it is The Casuarina Tree is also a poem written by Toru Dutt, so don't get confused. Okay, and also one more thing, because we are talking about this work, The Razor's Edge, I also have to tell you one more thing. It is a very, very important thing and my students should know. You never know that they can ask you this in any of the coming exams. So this work basically tells about Larry Darrell, who was an American pilot who was traumatized because of his experience of World War I. Okay, so Larry के experiences के बारे में this story is. Mong basically is a narrator who is narrating this story and it's like he's talking about the reactions of the character who are tired because of the events of World War I. World War I is the major theme. The one more thing that you have to remember is that the novel's title, the title of this work comes from a translation of the words that was done in the Katha Upanishad, right? The paraphrase, and it was paraphrased in the book's epigraph. In the epigraph, we also talks about Katha Upanishad. The sharp edge of the razor is difficult to pass over. Thus, the wise say the path of salvation is hard. This is what? This is the epigraph. This is what? This is the epigraph of the novel and it is taken from Katha Upanishad. The title is also coming from Katha Upanishad. I can write it. It is a beautiful message. The sharp edge of a razor. तो razor का जो sharp edge है उसे मुश्किल से या पास कर पाते हो is difficult to pass over. Thus, the wise say the path to salvation is hard. So when you want to repent, when you are moving towards a better area, when you are moving towards a good phase of your life, and you're seeking help from God, salvation, wo cheez, it's not easy. It's like walking on the razor. Okay? So these are important works written by Somerset Maugham, though I totally forgot to tell you the right answer here, है ना? So it is D that is the right answer. The particular statement by Somerset Maugham is a comment on Jane Austen's Mansfield Park. It focuses on the life of Fanny Price and her experience living at Mansfield Park, where she has been sent due to financial problems in her family. The theme of the novel are development, collapse in the social relationship, slavery, and morality. So D becomes the right answer. Okay, and I am just remembering one more point I should give you. So I guess you guys have read Somerset Maugham, and you must have seen this work or read this work, Cakes and Ale. So Cakes and Ale, again a work coming out in 1930, is a very interesting work. I'll write facts about it. So Cakes and Ale, this is the work. So Monk basically drew this title, you know from where? From a very remarkable character, Sir Toby Blench. Are you guys amazed? Toby Blench, have you heard about it? So Toby Blench, this is a title that is coming from a remark that Toby Blench made to Malvolio in the works of Shakespeare. So it is seen in the work of Shakespeare called as Twelfth Night. So Twelfth Night is the novel where you find, is a play, sorry, it is a play written by Shakespeare, and you have Toby Blench who is saying a statement to Malvolio from where this title Cakes and Ale is taken. So he said this statement, "Dost thou think, because thou art virtuous, there shall be no more cakes and ale." Cakes and ale here is going to symbolize the good life. Okay. And from here the title is taken. Okay. So with this I can wind up today's class. I hope it was very informative. You liked the effort. I will see you in the next class, and this is your homework. So Jonathan Bate has written the work The Song of the Earth. It was published in which year? 2001, 1991, 2000 or 1999? This is your homework. Please comment down below and do a little bit research about Jonathan Bate as well. Thank you and have a wonderful day.